So we're just going to make sure everyone's got Power BI downloaded. So right here is a link to download Power BI. So you can just click that link, or you can open the Microsoft, the Windows Store. They'll both be the same thing. One will redirect you to the other. But you just hit this download free button here, and then it'll say open Microsoft Store, which is fine. You can open up the Microsoft Store. It's opening up on my other monitor here. I'll just bring that over and show you. And I already have it installed. It's a very, very simple process. Oh, I think someone has their mic muted. Okay. So, all right. I just had to mute everyone. All right, cool. So once you have it downloaded, it's very easy. It just says get right here. You just hit open. Once it's open, you go through the install, you accept and install wherever you want to install it. And then it's as simple as that. So give me a thumbs up once you guys have got it downloaded and installed. I don't want to go ahead without anybody if they don't have it yet. So I'll just give you guys a minute to make sure you have it. And if you do have it already, just shoot me a thumbs up in Microsoft Teams.
Just the download doesn't need to like what kind of thing we should log in, right? Because I believe that there is some kind of sort of a limitation for the student account.
So I'm just logged in through my Windows account right now. I haven't experienced any of the limitations for what we're going to do today. If we do experience that at some point, then we'll have to get a license through the college or something. But for the most part, everything we're going to be doing is part of the free features in the free version, so we shouldn't have any issues. If that answers your question.
Yeah, cool.
All right, so I'll just drag this over. Actually, and okay, so it looks like everybody's pretty much good to go. I'm just going to start. Well, Power BI is downloaded, I'll get into the first PowerPoint that I have, which is just an introduction to business intelligence and what business intelligence is. Does anybody have experience with business intelligence or want to tell me what you understand business intelligence or BI to be? No worries, no pressure. Okay, well, that's what this PowerPoint's for, so it'll be good. You can download the PowerPoints from Blackboard if you want to follow along, or I'll just put them on my screen and then we can go through them. But I might have to stop sharing this monitor and it will pop up onto my other monitor. So just give me a minute here. Perfect, okay. All right, and let me know if you can see that once. There we go, looks like it's sharing. Cool. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So business intelligence. What is business intelligence? Well, basically, a simple way to think about it, and I'm going to refer interchangeably all the time between BI and business intelligence. So what is BI? What is business intelligence? Is delivering relevant and reliable information to the right people at the right time. So a lot of times you'll see if you Google business intelligence or BI, it's like people at the front of the room with a bunch of pie charts and graphs and reports that they're showing to executives, right, to help make a business decision. So there's this goal of wanting to achieve better decisions faster for your business, right? So we're collecting data from our company, we're structuring it, we're gonna, tweak it to be the exact way we want it to. We're gonna convert all of that data into information, and then we're gonna look for trends and patterns that we can use to help improve business decisions, right? So we present that data in meaningful and actionable ways, which could be charts, they could be reports, they could be dashboards, online or printed off, emailed to the CEO once a week or something like that. So what do we use it for specifically? Well, there's all different types of business intelligence. We can do data text mining. We can use it to do predictive modeling. We can do statistical analysis, big data analytics, which is obviously going to be really relevant to this course, performance management, visualization software, and a whole lot more. So imagine being able to have access to organized data in your company at any time. Any employee can go and access, their key performance indicators, like how many sales they've made that month, or what their profit margins are, what the bottom line is, the most profitable, say, component or product that company is selling at any given time, is a really helpful information for employees as well as administration. It helps you identify areas of strengths and weaknesses within your company, as well as strengths and weaknesses within your employees if you collect data on them as well. It also helps you discover new opportunities if you notice a trend that's going towards somewhere else, like a specific product, and then you realize that product can be improved even better. It helps you understand your company, the operations within your company, and the challenges that you have within your company as well. So if you were to, have a loyalty program and track a specific customer, like Air Miles does, or something like that, where you scan it everywhere you go, or even your credit card, right? And they track where you're buying things and what you're buying, how much you're spending, how frequently. You can see all of this information, whether a customer buys in store, online. You can eventually use that data to predict individual customer needs, habits, or preferences. So we can understand that a certain profile of customer compared to another profile of customer is going to spend more during Christmas or more during the March break holidays. We can anticipate new opportunities to sell, and we can even offer better services as a company to those customers based on the trends that we notice. You can even do things like targeted marketing campaigns where you send coupons to a specific profile of customer if the customer matches that profile based on the items that they find interesting or look at or have in their shopping cart but don't check out at a specific moment in time. So that is, in a nutshell, what business intelligence is. And how it works is there's kind of this 5-step process, and this is kind of a bird's eye view to give you, a way zoomed out version of what we're going to be doing throughout the year. And then we'll kind of dive into these in way more detail in the weeks to come. But basically, you have data from a source, right? And that's what this whole program Big Data is about. You have loads of data that's maybe unorganized, or it's loaded into a data warehouse, or maybe you just have a bunch of spreadsheets or CSV files that your boss has given you. And, picture yourself as just an employee in this company, and they want to know some information about this data. Well, the first step is actually getting that data organized, right? Because if you have a spider web of spreadsheets or a mix and match of CSV files and Excel files and online Google Sheets, you have to organize that all into one collaborative section. So maybe an OLAP cube or something that can do analytical data processing, right? So creating a data model is what that's called. So that's step 2 right here, to actually prepare your data for analysis. Then the step 3, which is actually analyzing and looking at that data. So you're actually going to be running those queries against that clean set of data. So step 2 is kind of that ETL process, that extract, transform, and load into the cube. And then once it's into the cube, and we'll talk about what I mean by cube in a little bit, once you've organized it and cleaned it, then you can actually start looking for those trends, for those patterns, and running those queries. Step 4 is taking those query results and actually building it into a visualization, right? So putting it into a dashboard that you can maybe look at online. So if you've ever been on, I don't know, if you've ever created a YouTube channel and you go to your YouTube studio or your creator studio, you can see which videos are trending on your channel, what your metrics are, how many views you have per month, and they graph it out in such a way that it allows you to see, these beautifully represented visuals that give you, all your key performance indicators as a YouTuber. So I only know this because I upload my videos onto YouTube from my class recordings, and then students who are attending asynchronously or synchronously go and watch them, and I can see all these trends, like where my the demographics of my viewers, the gender, where they're from, and I can see the watch time, how long the average watch time is of a video, and I can see all this in a nice dashboard. So that's step 4, is making those dashboards. Step 5 is then, giving those dashboards to the people who need to make the decision, right? So executive workers, CEOs, chiefs of operations of, finance or anything like that, so that they can make this strategic plan, they can make an informed decision based off of trends and patterns in our data, right? So think about like when you go to a grocery store, right? And you need something very basic, very simple, like the bread or the eggs or milk, right? Those staples of food. We don't need to ever ask anybody where to go because we know where these items are. They're well organized and they're really easy to find. Well, we want our data to be like this as well, right? So imagine if you worked for someone who had a small business and they want you to collect information on, production, billable hours, sales goals. You have to collect data from 3 different sources, right? From production, billable hours, and sales goals. So maybe you talk to 3 different departments within that business, and you come back and you have to conglomerate all of those 3 different sources into one source, right? You have to clean it up and you have to make it one source that you can query from, right? So BI is all about taking your messy information and turning it into really tidy and accessible, grocery store aisles. If you're using that visual, like a grocery store, that's really easy to, navigate as a user. You can go down this aisle, you know exactly where to find the milk, you know exactly where the data you're looking for is. So that's what BI is all about. Or business intelligence is all about. You can navigate your data on your own, find what you need to find without relying on other people to do that. So no longer do you have to go through manually and pick apart your data or look at large, webs of Excel spreadsheets online or mash together different reports. You have all of these tools that build into the reports and the dashboards online automatically. Cool. Any questions so far about anything? Does that sound good? Should probably open up Microsoft Teams here to see anything is happening in the chat. All good? Okay, cool. We got a lot of thumbs up. I don't know why it doesn't show up over my PowerPoint here, but sweet, we'll continue. So moving on, basically our mission, what we're doing as a business intelligence analyst or in business intelligence is decision support, right? So we take data, and if you follow this chain of arrows, right, we turn that data into information. And I'll talk a little bit about the difference between data and information in a little bit. And then information we convert into knowledge. And another word for that would be intelligence, right? So business intelligence. So what is that? And I'll talk about the difference between data, information, and intelligence in a little bit. But you're taking data and you're making something out of it. You're finding a story, right? You're finding a trend or a pattern. And then knowledge is like, why? Why is that trend or pattern here? And then results is, you exploit it or you use it to your advantage to make your company more money or to improve the process so it's faster, something like that, right? Cool. So here's a little bit of a graphic on the evolution of business intelligence, and you can kind of see we've got time going up here and then resources spreading out this way. So the more resources you have, the more time you have, obviously the better solution you can have. And as we look through this, we can see the old way to do it, this is way back in the day, would just be like standard reports, where things would just be printed off. Ad hoc reports, what that means is on the fly, you can select something from a drop-down and get a report ad hoc. So you can get a report on a specific product or a specific customer by selecting it from a drop-down list and loading that report. Drill down, basically what that means is drilling down a level. So you could have categories and then you could drill down to see the data and the statistics for all the subcategories, right? So, you have a car brand like Volkswagen, but then you could drill down into it and see all the different models of the car. So you could see the Jetta, you could see the Tiguan, you could see all the different types of Volkswagens and what their metrics are. Moving on through this way, as you have more resources, and obviously this with big data and you find analysis and trends in that data, you start to be able to use that data to predict the future, right? So that's where you're actually getting into things like forecasting and predictive modeling, right? So you're using the past to describe the what and the why, and then you're actually using it to predict the future and do forecasting. And then obviously the best is where you can actually optimize your business based on that stuff. So I said I would talk a little bit about what intelligence is, and you might have heard of something called business analytics or business intelligence analytics. And I just wanted to kind of clarify a little bit about the difference. So these arrows, just imagine the left arrow is the past, the up arrow is the present, and the right arrow is the future. So focusing on the left picture first, with business intelligence, okay, and that's what this course is, you're using past and current data to inform current decisions in your business for current success, right? So you're using that data from the past to affect the present, okay? With business analytics, you're using the past data to explain the current data and then predict what will happen in the future, right? So we'll get into a little bit of analytics and stuff when we start using machine learning and stuff like that. Another way to represent it is business intelligence is the what and the how, and business analytics is the why and the what next. Okay, so kind of two ways to represent that. So what we've learned through doing this is information sharing is more powerful. You want to, keep that as a kind of highlighted note, because information sharing, the more you share the information, the more around the company you're able to get that information shared through different employees, through different levels, the more everyone's going to be on the same page and communicating and know what they need to do for success. So yeah. Remember, these are two little quotes that I like. A good analysis of relatively poor data is markedly more valuable than a poor analysis of relatively good data. And another one, information is only valuable if it is used. Just a little bit of food for thought for you there. Okay, so talking about the difference between data, information, and intelligence. Data, which is represented by just a single point, right, is information. It's just like it's not information. Information is the next point. Data is just a recorded truth from one point in time. It's a snapshot of an event, okay, which could be a transaction, it could be a conversation, it could be an interaction with a company website, and it's just a recorded truth, right? Information is, in its simplistic way, it's the bringing of data together. So you will have information when you take data from an event and pull it into a narrative, right? It's the context of data helping you answer questions such as how many clients operate in a certain department? What is our churn rate? How long is our sales cycle, right? So data is the collection of outcomes from those events that's recorded in a quantifiable way. Information, if you think about it, is the story that you make from that data. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. And it helps us answer some questions, right? So it's the answers to those questions that create the information. It's all about turning those data points into something that informs you about business. And then the last step here, intelligence, is even a step further. And it uses information to drive decisions, right? So instead of just telling that story, that's what information does. Like, what is our sales cycle, or how long is it, or how many clients do we have? It's using that information and then painting a picture, right? So if information is a story, which is why I have a book here, then intelligence is a picture or a photo. And it actually is, if you're selling to more people in a specific department, then intelligence answers why that might be happening. Intelligence looks at the number of events, the ad spend, or the marketing campaigns that that department receives, and then compares it to other clients in other regions or markets. And then through that analysis, you can see, that there's a greater number of interactions in the specific department, and you can deduce that you need to do the same thing in other departments to bring the sales up, right? So that's what intelligence is. It's using it to make decisions. If intelligence is your end goal, which it should be, you need to have clean, accurate data first and foremost, right? So we need to get it all in one place, clean it up, and transform it so it's quality data, right? Therefore, you need to collect your data from operational environments across your organization, both internally, externally, and you never know what insights might transpire without data. That whole thing falls apart, right? So each of these builds on each other. Okay, so for example, let's talk about, does anyone know the grocery store Tesco? Someone said they wanted to travel Europe earlier, so maybe you know about Tesco.
Yeah.
You've heard of it? Have you ever been to a Tesco?
Not really. Not really.
Okay. So a Tesco is, in the simplest terms, a grocery store, and in Europe. So I actually lived in Ireland for a year, and I had a Tesco just around the corner from my house, so I actually shopped there frequently. And back in 1995, they created a loyalty card, right? So we were talking about that earlier. And the sole intent of that loyalty card for them was to collect information on their customers. And they wanted to, start creating information and intelligence as output from that loyalty card. So without the context that information that was gained through that loyalty card, that data was meaningless, right? So you need to ask those critical questions of your data, that you've gathered through the loyalty program, of like the who, the what, the where, the when, the how of your business, to actually get any meaningful content out of the data you've collected. So in Tesco's case, they used this data from their club card, which was the name of the loyalty program, to see how often the customers shopped at their store versus different competitors, right? So what types of purchases they were making, when they preferred to shop, what times, and tons of other data points. And basically, to complete that data continuum, like the data, information, intelligence, you need to actually analyze your data, right? And you need to uncover the why behind everything, why those results are happening, and make informed business decisions based off of it, right? So for Tesco, they did that, they asked the why, and they saw that customers in populous communities, so, tons of population or higher population communities, preferred express stores that housed essential products only, as they provided a faster and more convenient shopping experience with, faster checkout times and shorter lines. Whereas, their normal stores, like for example, here's an Extra, Tesco Extra, carries, extra different types of food, maybe a broader supply. So they use this intelligence to revamp many of their stores in those populous communities with the higher population to the express model to cater to the community that they were serving in. So business intelligence, as you can see from that example, is really helpful. It's not just for those big companies of the world, however. It's not just for the Tescos. Organizations often get very to come along with it, but software as a service technology has made it so cheap and accessible to collect this data and create information based off of it, that there's really not those scary costs or labor associated with them anymore. So throughout this course, we're going to be looking at how to do that, and how to answer those questions, those who, what, when, where, and ultimately the why behind the data that we're looking at. So that's a little example from the real world. Just some terminology to go over quickly. I'm not going to read through all of these because it would take quite a long time, but I want to leave this here in the PowerPoint just so you guys have access to it. And if I ever say a word or refer to something that's confusing to you, just come back here, read through it, and then you'll be hopefully less lost. But Business intelligence is a catch-all term encompassing a variety of tools, applications, methodologies to collect data from internal systems and external sources. It can be used to prepare data for analysis, develop and run queries, create reports, dashboards, visualizations, with the end goal of providing results to decision makers and end users. I mentioned a cube earlier. Do you guys know what a cube is?
No, would you mind to say?
Okay, perfect. So we can go through that one too. A cube, sometimes referred to as an OLAP cube, is like a multi-dimensional, if you think about like a SQL table, like 2 dimensions like this, so you have like your rows, and then you have your rows, and then you have your columns. So like if you have first name, last name, employee number, and then you have all your rows. So if you had 10 employees, you'd have 10 rows, multi-dimension. So you have 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, and then you have a 3rd dimension going like this. I gotta see if there's an easy way for me to draw it here. Oops. I did have a drawing program. Basically, the 3rd dimension is usually time. So if you had a products table, and then you had locations that those products would be sold at. So say you had a product that was like a baseball glove, and it was sold at a store in Washington. But then you want to be able to look at the sales over, 2015, 2014, 2013, 2012. And then there's these multi-dimensional sections of data built from all those tables. And it's this kind of cube of data, is the easiest way to think of it, that you can run queries and calculations on to get specific information from a moment in time or a moment between multiple dimensions of data. So hopefully that helps. We probably won't be building one in this class, as it's a huge amount of work. I worked with cubes and OLAP cubes in Toronto when I was working for that company, and they kind of took over the whole business intelligence world back in like the 90s until now, but they're kind of on their way out a little bit just because of a new technology called columnar databases, which is also like a big data thing. So I wouldn't worry about it too much, but I might mention it every now and then. So hopefully, does that clear it up a little bit?
Yeah, thanks.
Maybe a little bit. Don't worry about it too much. I just know I mentioned it earlier in the class, so I just wanted to clear it up. Okay, what else do we have?
Sorry, just a quick question.
Yeah.
You mentioned like a cube being, so you have your like different informations, and your row is your columns holding different informations, right? Like employee ID and then pay or whatnot. And then each row being like the information gathered, right? And then the 3rd dimension being time. But isn't it usually you also see like tables where time is also one of the things on like the columns, right? So how's that any different?
You cut out for the first half of your question. So I'm trying to, sorry, I kind of just, I think my internet went out for like 5 seconds there, so I missed the first half. But are you saying sometimes you see time on one of the first dimensions? So
right. So like in time series graphs and like time series tables, you also see like time as part of the columns, right? So how is that any different from like the cube?
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you mean. So typically time is like the 3rd dimension, but you can have things that, and it's kind of trippy to think about, but you can have like 4 or 5 or 6 dimensional cubes. 3 dimensions is the easiest way to think about it because you can actually visualize it. So if I pull up like maybe it's the easiest if I just pull up like a Google image of an OLAP cube. Sometimes if it's not time, then it's geography. So it's like physical locations or something that breaks up the data into different chunks. So it could be like all your different branches of stores by state, by city, or something like that. So here's a good one. So typically like here, if you had like a list of products and then geography, so you wanted to find the products of TVs that were sold in Asia for the year, for Q1, and then you'd find it this cube. But if you wanted to find it for Q4, well, then it'd be way back here in the 4th one, if that makes sense.
How would you even look at that though?
but a specific, node. Sorry.
No, I mean, like if you're, for example, if you're trying to like present this to like stockholders, like it kind of seems like unless you're like, unless you have a good understanding of cubes, you're gonna have to spend some time explaining the information to your stockholders rather than, oh, okay, here's the chart and this is what you can draw from it. Easily they can pull the information, right? Like simplistic charts instead of something overly complicated.
Yeah, so the charts is typically what you'll always see as the end result that you give to people like the stockholders or like executive, committees and stuff like that. Cubes and OLAP cubes and working when in things like multi-dimensions is like for us as developers is a tool that we use to put all the data into like a reporting service. And so then you build this cube and it's like this, how that analogy that I had of like a really neat grocery store with all your aisles very clean.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that where you have this cube that's really well organized and then you can run something called MDX queries or multidimensional queries, which is like a version of SQL. And you can pull from data from an OLAP cube and then it will actually kind of hook into like a reporting service, like a SQL Server reporting service or something like that, where they can just load a URL and on their end, and all they see is like graphs and pie charts that pop up, but the data is dynamically being connected from this cube, if that makes sense.
So it's more of a storage process or a storage method rather than like a presentation method.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's 100% what it is. It's also known. Sorry if I communicated that incorrectly. It's not at all like a presentation tool. A data cube or an OLAP cube is also known as a data warehouse, which is just like a giant structure to contain data.
Okay.
Sorry, that's my bad for not being clear. But yes, good question. Does that clear it up? Hopefully.
Yes. I like automatically my brain was thinking it's like, oh, okay, this must be some way to like present the data, right? It's like a cube and you have your for like columns and rows. Like my mind was imagining like, oh, okay, so it's a table or a chart that you're showing people, but then you look at it in
that'd be a
a
pretty bad way to communicate with the client, I think. Yeah, good question. Cool. All right, so what other ones did I want to touch on? So you'll see here data warehouse, a large store of data drawing from a wide range of sources that can be processed, split, and analyzed to guide decisions. They're typically relational databases that contain historical data, but it's also can be used in like they can be relational databases or they can be cubes or OLAP cubes. Do you guys know the term drill through or drill down? Like if you were to drill down into a piece of data or something like that? Because okay. So that's a good one to know. So basically in a report or something like that, you can have like a high level of data. So if you're looking at something like products, okay, and you saw maybe like total sales for your products. And then on the report, it could actually be an interactive report and you can click that, item. Products, and then it could show a breakdown for all of the sub-products or subcategories in that product, right? So you could have like all your products and then it could break it down into like tech, education, financial stuff, whatever, and it could break it down into all of those things. So what do they say here? And there's drill down refers to moving from high level to detailed transactional data by focusing in on something, a particular number in a report, for example. In the visualization environment, drilling down may involve clicking on the representation in order to reveal more detail. So sometimes it brings you to a different screen and you drill down. Drill through is a very similar thing, except you're like drilling through to a specific category instead of seeing all of the categories broken, by each category. ETL, do you guys know extract, transform, load?
Yeah, we have heard of it.
Okay, that's good. Joins, you guys would know the joins from databases if you use SQL, like inner join, left join, right join, full join.
Yes, it's a query, right?
That's about
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, we heard of
Okay,
that.
cool. Perfect. KPIs, key performance indicators.
No.
that. It's for the company, right? Like how do they evaluate their factor thing? Something like their outcome thing.
Yeah, you got it, Vivian, totally. So it can differ from company to company, and you can call a KPI whatever you want to track, basically. So it's a business metric, and it's crucial to that organization's success. So for a company like a bank, they maybe want to track, new customers or new clients or something like that. Whereas like a sports company, they want to track sales for their top.
But I got a question, what's the difference with KPI and OKR? Because like people also
You
talk
can have
about
KPIs that differ from. Sorry.
I mean, I'm asking like, what's the difference between KPI and OKR? I have a really I have been confused for a while. Like, what's the difference between KPI and OKR? Because the different company, some company they say they want that KPI, but some companies say they want that OKR.
An OKR?
Yeah.
What does that stand for?
Similar with like something similar with like a KPI, but it's like KPI is more more focused on the process, and OKR is more focused on the outcome, or the opposite way. I'm not quite sure about that.
I actually haven't heard of OKR. Do you know what it stands for?
Oh, give me a second. I can Google it. You can keep going.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I don't think I don't think I'd be able to answer. Maybe Google would be able to tell you, and you can tell us what it says. But OKR, I haven't come across in my terminology. But yeah, KPIs, you could have even different KPIs in one business, right? So you could have a KPI in marketing that tracks like how much money they spent in advertising, and then you could have a KPI in HR, which shows their turnover rates for hiring new employees or employee satisfaction. So KPIs differ depending on what you want to track and depending on the department that you are or the company that you are, right? Did you find anything, Vivian, on OKR versus KPI?
I don't. I think I got a phone. I'm not sure whether I got a phone name. Objective and the key result, is that?
Objective key
Yeah,
result.
objectives and the key resource. It's like a goal setting framework used by individual teams and organizations to define, measurable goal and track their outcomes. So this one, I guess, is more focused on the outcome. And it's kind of like KPI is kind of like, I don't know, I'm not sure whether my understanding is correct or not, but I think KPI is kind of popular by like previous year. But then now more and more companies actually talking about OKR.
It sounds like to me, and this is just like my basic interpretation of it, but it sounds like a KPI is like the current progress of, say your profits for a product.
Yeah.
And an OKR is like the goal of where you need to be to meet your budgeting or something like that.
Yeah, kind of. I think so.
Okay, so you'd use them maybe in correspondence with each other. So like your KPI is where you're at, and then your OKR is like we need to be here to match our budget from last year or something like that. Sounds like interesting. Okay, cool. It's good to learn. There's a couple more in here. So here's OLAP if you want to read through that, which is kind of in relation to the cube. You can come back to that. Here's OLAP cube, which is specifically what I was talking about. Generally for reporting purposes, data measures categorized by dimensions. In the cube, it's often pre-summarized data across dimensions to drastically improve query time. So typically you have aggregate data that you've put together. But like I said, there's newer technologies coming out like columnar databases that are aggregated by column, and they're a lot faster. So things like Google BigQuery or some stuff in Amazon Web Services that allow you to do instant transactions or instant analytical processing on big data without the overhead that we used to experience, just because our technology is getting better, right? Cool. Sweet. I will open up. We'll get into Power BI now and talk a little bit about Power BI. Okay.